Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, Mike Lindell sent me a note yesterday. He has a special for the 6-piece towel set, $25 when you use promo code Joey. Just go to mypillow.com, use promo code Joey. You'll get the $25 offer on the 6-piece towel set, and I promise you, these will be the most comfortable, the most absorbent towels that you own. mypillow.com, use promo code Joey, get the 6-piece towel set for just $25. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Donald Trump faces new indictments in the January 6th Capitol riot case after the Supreme Court immunity ruling just last month. Details later in the show. They're just doing everything they can to prevent Donald Trump from going back to the White House. Vice President Kamala Harris's first sit-down interview as the Democrat nominee will be a joint interview with her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, on CNN after literally weeks of avoiding the press. A woman got tired of her mail getting stolen, so she sent herself a package with an Apple AirTag to help catch the thieves, and it worked. Special forces found a Hamas hostage alone in one of their extensive tunnels yesterday. He's now home safely. We have the details on that story for you as well. And finally, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg alleges the White House turned up heat on his teams to take down certain items during the COVID pandemic.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
At 4:26 p.m. yesterday afternoon, Fox News broke the story.
All right, some news just into us right now where the special counsel Jack Smith has returned what they're calling a superseding indictment against Donald Trump in that D.C. case. It doesn't mean it's more. It just means it's more focused, I guess. Jeff Spunt on all of that right now. Sir.
Yeah, hi, Neil. It is exactly a little bit more focused. In fact, the indictment itself, about 10 pages shorter than the original indictment from last year. So the same four core charges are included on this indictment. The reason that Donald Trump was re-indicted, if you will, is because the Supreme Court came back somewhat in his favor on July 1st of this year, telling Jack Smith, the special counsel, essentially in layman's terms, you need to go back and rethink about your case before District Judge Tanya Chutkan. This was supposed to go to trial on March 4th, but it was delayed because of the Supreme Court. So while all of these four core charges stay here relating to Donald Trump, the man and the candidate, some of the officials, like Jeffrey Clark, the former DOJ official, have been taken out, and this is a much more focused indictment. I also want to point out, Neil, that this is dealing with a new grand jury, so this grand jury did not hear anything about the other indictment from last August 1st of 2023. They only heard the facts in this case. What does this mean? Likely we're not going to see any type of trial before the election. Jack Smith, the special counsel, and Donald Trump's lawyers will be in court next week here in Washington, D.C. to talk about the path forward. But really, there would be no path forward unless Jack Smith did this today and really tightened up that indictment. And that's why we are where we are, Neil.
All right, David, thank you very much. I apologize, David. I was thinking of Jeff Paul is coming up a little later on in our show from Tel Aviv. Great job, as always, my friend.
Here's what we know so far. Special counsel Jack Smith filed a superseding indictment against former President Donald Trump yesterday in a bid to, we're told, bolster one of the two criminal cases against the GOP nominee. This, of course, following the Supreme Court's landmark presidential immunity decision just a few weeks ago. Trump remains charged with the same four counts that were unveiled last August in connection with his bid to allegedly overturn the 2020 election defeat by Joe Biden. But Smith's team retooled some of their arguments to comply with the high court's determination that the 45th president enjoys, quote, absolute immunity from prosecution for certain official acts. Smith explained in the filing, the superseding indictment, which was presented to a grand jury, a new grand jury, by the way, that had not previously heard evidence in this case, reflects the government's efforts to respect and implement the Supreme Court's holdings. The indictment's most significant update is the removal of descriptions pertaining to Trump's engagement with former acting Assistant Attorney General Jeffrey Clark and accusations that Trump attempted to leverage the Justice Department to help him remain in the White House. Two sources being quoted by the New York Post say that Clark is not cooperating with Smith's investigation, contrary to theories floated on social media after yesterday's indictment was filed. Clark, who is charged alongside Trump in a separate election tampering case out of Georgia, pushed his bosses to sign on to a letter urging GOP legislators in battleground states, one of which being Georgia, to reevaluate election results ahead of Biden's inauguration, this according to congressional testimony on the record. President Trump is charged with conspiracy to defraud the U.S., conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, as well as conspiracy against riots. And we know that these are all sham accusations, sham charges. And we know that Jack Smith is going to try his best as Biden's Department of Justice to keep Trump out of the White House. I just didn't anticipate that they would be this in your face with it. That once the Supreme Court had handed down their decision a few weeks ago, that Jack Smith would just come back and get in Trump's face. The Supreme Court's ruling July the 1st meant that any trial of Trump, of course, is unlikely before the November 5th election, but still, they got the headlines. I mean, think about it. How many news alerts did you get yesterday? How many times did you see this mentioned last night if you watched the news? Jack Smith re-indicts Donald Trump. Some people, the low information voters, as Trump calls them, as Rush Limbaugh would call them as well, some people will just see the headline and oh, there he goes again, another charge. They won't even understand or recognize the fact that this is rehashing the hash. In his majority opinion, Chief Justice John Roberts described a presumption of immunity for presidents, meaning that the burden is on Smith to prove that Trump is criminally liable, according to Fox News legal analyst. So the 36-page superseding indictment, and honestly, that's what all the legal analysts and Jack Smith himself made a point to say that this is a superseding indictment, includes pared down language about Trump's knowledge of the falsity of his election fraud claims. So in other words, this is really the same indictment. Jack Smith has just reworded it a bit and taken out some of the things that he thinks that the Supreme Court used to strike it down. So in case there's another challenge, that maybe it will survive this time. Prosecutors wrote a new line in their indictment saying, quote, the defendant had no official responsibilities related to the certification proceeding, but he did have a personal interest as a candidate in being named the winner of the election. They also noted that while Trump sometimes used his Twitter account to communicate with the public about official actions, he also regularly used it for personal purposes, meaning that he couldn't be shielded by government immunity on things that he was doing personally. And look, his Twitter account absolutely was a personal account, still is, even though it's been one of the first things that Elon Musk did was to make it active again. Trump really hasn't used it that much. An example that the government used, that Trump used his social media account, said to spread knowingly false claims of election fraud, exhort his supporters to travel to Washington, D.C. for the January 6th rally, of course. And look, he did. I mean, he did encourage people to go for a peaceful rally, which is their right to do so. It is every American's right to go and gather on the mall in Washington, D.C., and express your concerns. They went on to say that he pressured Vice President Mike Pence to misuse his ceremonial role in the certification proceeding and leverage the events at the Capitol on January 6th to unlawfully retain power. Prosecutors also said that President Trump's ellipse speech that preceded the Capitol rioters going into the nation's capital said his supporters was at a privately funded, privately organized political rally. Again, they're trying to establish the fact that this was outside of his duties as a sitting president at the time. Smith's team argued that Trump's immunity claim before the Supreme Court, after the two lower courts previously sided with Jack Smith, that it should be thrown out. That this was not Trump acting as president, but Trump, the private citizen, trying to be reelected president. Of course, the indictments have been in limbo for weeks after the Supreme Court's ruling. Your comments are welcome on the Common Sense Retirement Planning text line, 71307. Does this surprise you? Did you think that Jack Smith would bring this up before the election? This is pure politics, isn't it? Love to get your comments. Email me as well, joey@joeyhudson.com. Hope you'll join the conversation today, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Firmin Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. PhD Weight Loss wants you to know, yes, you can. You can get back to your ideal healthy weight. Yes, you can get back into sizes you thought you'd never see again. And yes, you can get rid of that harmful belly fat, all without becoming dependent on medication loaded with side effects. Hi, it's Joey Hudson here. PhD Weight Loss encourages and equips you to lose weight the healthy, natural way and keep it all for the rest of your life. Dr. Ashley Lucas, a licensed registered nutritionist, developed a solid plan that works. Trust me, I lost 30 pounds. You see, PhD Weight Loss removes the guesswork. They literally tell you exactly what to eat each day while you watch the pounds melt away. But they also teach you to think about food differently and to learn to anticipate and navigate situations that make you want to indulge. PhD coaches will teach you to believe finally that yes, you can do it. With no gimmicks or lifelong medications, finally lose the weight and keep it off. Yes, you can. Call today. PhD Weight Loss, 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900, or go to myphdweightloss.com. One of the nation's oldest civil rights organizations is trying to seek federal legal action after Texas officials executed searches and seizures related to alleged illegal ballot harvesting ahead of the 2024 election. I've got that story for you in just a moment. First, I wanted to share this with you. This is the kind of story. This is actually something that my wife, Peg, probably says that I would try to do. You know, a while back, our mail started disappearing. And it was the most frustrating thing because we knew there were things that we were expecting, packages and envelopes, even some checks, and they didn't come. And we realized that, and especially when we had spent the weekend at the lake or whatever, we realized that our mail was disappearing. But there's, what do you do about it? Well, one thing I did was I put a deer cam on the mailbox, hoping that I would get a good photo of the person. I also, at one point, when I realized what was happening, I made up a dummy package and put it out there and just put some stuff in it, nails and stuff, so it would rattle and all. But I put a note in there. This is after I put the deer camera out there. I put a note in there so if they open it up saying, hey, you were just on Candy Camera. I've got a photo of you. Now, surprisingly, no one ever took the box. I guess when they saw the camera, that kind of scared them away. What I did do, though, was I eventually bought a new mailbox, one of the kinds that has a lock on it. Well, a California woman whose mail, just like mine, was being stolen, used technology. I wish I'd have thought of it. Authorities in Los Alamos arrested 2 suspects this week with the help of an Apple AirTag locator device that the woman had mailed to herself, according to the sheriff's office there in Santa Barbara County. Deputies responded to a report of a mail theft that had just happened at the local post office. When they arrived, they learned the woman recently had mail stolen, so she decided to send herself a package with the Apple AirTags in there. Again, why didn't I think of this? The AirTags, you can put them in anything. I keep them in my luggage. I keep them in my backpacks. I even have them on Jesse and Simon, our dogs. And you can track it right to where it is. When she became a repeat mail victim, she decided, well, I'm going to put an AirTag in a box, send it to myself so that hopefully they'll steal it. And they did. The sheriff's office said it's important to note that the victim did not attempt to contact the suspects on her own, but notified authorities. The suspected thieves were located in nearby Santa Maria, California, with the victim's mail, including the package with the AirTag in it. Other items authorities believe were stolen from other people, dozens of other victims, the sheriff's office said. The two male stealers, male thieves, Virginia Lara, 27, Donald Terry, 37, were arrested in connection with the crime. And this is a federal crime, stealing mail. Lara was booked on felonies, including possession of checks with an intent to commit fraud, fictitious checks, identity theft, credit card theft, and conspiracy, and remains on a $50,000 bail bond. The other assailant, Mr. Terry, faces felony charges, including burglary, possession of checks, and is held on a $460,000 bail bond, according to jail records. CNN says that they have reached out to lawyers representing the two. In the release, the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office also commended the AirTag's owner for her proactive solution to track down the thieves. Again, I'm just disappointed in myself that I did not think of this. So, look, if your mail is being stolen, put a box in your mail. You know, I've heard of people doing this with packages on their front porch too, when packages, their Amazon boxes are disappearing. All right, on to this situation in Texas. Attorney General Ken Paxton announced that his office's election integrity unit had executed searches in 3 South Texas counties last week as part of his ongoing probe. Now, this is just turning Democrats upside down. They're standing on their heads over stuff like this. Paxton said the unit had been working since 2022 to investigate fraud and ballot harvesting allegations, which led to enough evidence to obtain warrants. Officials at the LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens, though, alleged the warrant searches constituted raids and wrongly targeted elderly longtime volunteers who were engaged in lawful ballot collection. LULAC National President Roman Palomares said that he's hoping to go to Washington to meet with the Justice Department officials who handle civil rights cases. He alleges that 100% of those targeted were of Latino or minority ethnicity. Paxton's office did not return a request for comment, but the Attorney General in a statement said that secure elections are the cornerstone of our republic, saying, "We were glad to assist when the district attorney referred this case to my office for investigation. We are completely committed to protecting the security of the ballot box and the integrity of every legal vote. This means ensuring accountability for anything committing election crimes," he said. Palomares said that there may be another political interest in the Uvalde area counties where the operation took place. Governor Greg Abbott and Texas Republicans see the 80th State House District as the Democrat seat most primed to flip red in November. So they're charging the Republicans of already setting up an election fraud in this House district. The LULAC director argued that the volunteers aren't in Bexar County to help Democrats retain the seat, suggesting the organization is not allowed to do so. He said those folks that have been targeted, it appears that it's targeted around this district. Abbott's office did not return a request for comment on the allegation, but it did in January endorse former Uvalde Mayor Don McLaughlin, the Republican who's in the race. Palomares added that one woman subject to the warrant searches was 80 years old and a former member of the LULAC board. And I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry if this upset her, but hey, you got to be careful with what you get involved in. And if in fact they were illegally interfering, or actually, I guess the charge is that they were getting set up to illegally interfere in this race. These are the types of things that we have to do around the country. And look, and this is why when people ask me about, well, are you concerned about the integrity of our elections this year? Yes, I am, but I'm also hopeful that there are other attorney generals like Ken Paxton and other states around the country who have these special units set up to keep an eye on things just like this. And I think they are. I think Laura Trump's, she literally has an army of thousands of attorneys who are getting ready to observe our election starting with early voting through November the 5th. And that's what we have to do. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Firmin Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Whether you're replacing a broken appliance or maybe you're just upgrading, you're totally remodeling the kitchen, when it's time to get those new appliances, when you're ready for them, you don't want to have to wait weeks or even months to get started using them, right? Well, that's not the case when you shop with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. With over 11,000 square feet and 1,500 appliances at any given time, you can buy today and use today quite often. I'm talking about shopping with my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse in Pickens. It's worth the short drive over to Pickens. Jeff, Johnny, Kyle, the whole team over there, they'll take good care of you. They have an award-winning service department, expert installation, extended warranties, and at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they treat you like family. You're more than just a credit card swipe to all the team over there. Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they're proud to offer Speed Queen, the only washer and dryers with manufacturer's warranties that cover parts and labor. You owe it to yourself, if you're looking for a new appliance, to head over to Pickens to Discounted Appliance Warehouse online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. Finally, Vice President Kamala Harris is going to have her first sit-down interview after becoming the Democrat nominee. It's going to be a joint interview, though. She's going to take her VP candidate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, to CNN after weeks of literally avoiding the press. The Democrat ticket will join CNN's Dana Bash for what's being called an extensive interview as they campaign in the battleground state of Georgia tomorrow. The interview will be taped tomorrow afternoon. It will air Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time in primetime special. Is she afraid to do this interview on her own, you think? You think it's odd that in the first major interview that she has, that she wants to do a joint one with her vice presidential candidate? Now, I get that. I think it's probably good to do an interview with your vice presidential candidate. Trump and J.D. Vance have done a number of interviews together, and that's okay. But don't you think if this were your first major interview as the Democrat nominee, that you would have done it on your own? Of course, we know why she's not doing it on her own, don't we? She needs that backdrop. She needs that support system of having her VP by her side there. I mean, it's been over a month since Joe Biden announced that he'd be taking his name off of the ticket. He'd be removing himself from the Democrat nomination process. Kamala Harris, after about 48 hours, had rallied the troops around her. It looked a little iffy there at the beginning, but she managed to do it, and I have to give her credit for that. But she has refused to talk to the media. We all know why, because when she does talk to the media without any notes, without a teleprompter, she just can't do it. She makes a mess of it. She has been, in the last previous weeks, she's been facing growing scrutiny for avoiding the interviews, and not having a press conference, not explaining to the American people how she feels about certain policies and what she'll do if she's elected, if she's entrusted to be our president. Even some of Harris's supporters in the media have been calling on her to explain to the American people her positions on the issues. What are your policy? What policies are important to you, and what are you going to do about inflation, for example? What will you do about the southern border? We know what you haven't done already. Explain some of your flip-flops. Explain how just a few years ago you were opposed to fracking. Now suddenly you say that you won't ban fracking. Charlemagne the God says that the vice president, just like every other candidate, should have to earn the votes. And he insinuated that included getting out there and giving interviews.
Votes are earned, not given, and they are earned through you going out there and explaining yourself. Vice President Kamala Harris has to go out there and explain her agenda and why she's the person for the job. Former President Donald Trump has to go out there and explain his agenda. And by the way, they should be explaining without us asking.
Bingo. At least he gets it. Yes, we shouldn't even have to be asking. Look, the media shouldn't have to be begging her for interviews. She should be doing like Donald Trump does and making herself available, volunteering for anybody who wants to talk with her. Democrat strategist James Carville told Republican strategist Lance Trover that it's ridiculous to pressure Vice President Kamala Harris to conduct interviews with the press at this point in her campaign. Well, what do you mean at this point in her campaign? We just have a few months to go here. She got started late. So we haven't had the opportunity to have some of the dialogue that we would traditionally have had she gone through the primary process. I mean, if I were a Democrat, I would be livid right now to know that I didn't get a chance to vote for her, really. This was a sham of a nominating process. Carville, who, has been known as one of the Democrat strategists, maybe he's just getting old. We're all getting old. But on News Nation's Cuomo, he told Trover that Harris has been preoccupied with other matters and that there's no requirement for presidential candidates to do interviews toward the beginning of their campaigns. Look, it's not the beginning of her campaign. She came in late in the deal. Former Bill Clinton advisor Mark Penn said this week that Harris is sidestepping the press. It's undemocratic, he said, as it contributes to an uninformed electorate. He said, quote, "In my book, there should be 3 presidential debates, not 1. There should be position papers, not a donate page on your website." He said, and you should be before the press every 2 or 3 days, because if voters are not informed, then it's not a democracy with real votes. Well, at least one Democrat gets it. Harris will have a lot to answer for in this interview. It's going to be interesting to watch. Several policy shifts, of course, as she apparently has undergone, according to anonymous campaign statements to the press. I mean, that's how she's been pushing these changes, her change of heart out, because you've had all these leaks from within her campaign. But they really weren't leaks. They were intended to be leaked. In the first few weeks of her campaign, aides issued anonymous statements reversing Harris's 2020 stance on fracking, mandatory federal gun buybacks, and the abolition of private health insurance. This, according to the New York Times, and in a deep dive that they did. She'll likely be asked to explain her sudden evolution on border security, I hope. Surely she'll be asked about her sudden support of building a wall. How do you go from all the things that she said about not building a wall, and I'm going to share a couple of her own words with you in just a moment, but how do you go to being totally opposed to building a wall and literally being part of an administration who just stopped the building of the wall, literally has allowed millions and millions of dollars of materials, metal walls that have just been laying out there rusting because they didn't use them. Because Donald Trump's administration had purchased them to be installed, they stopped it immediately upon taking office. She'll also likely face questions about what she knew about Biden's mental decline behind the scenes, despite defending him publicly after his disastrous debate performance. She had to have known. If she's been as big a part of his administration as she wants us to believe she has been, then she would have known what shape Joe Biden was in. Governor Walz, too, will likely face questions over the growing controversy surrounding his military service. Bass was one of the moderators, you may recall, in the CNN presidential debate back in June, which marked the beginning of the end for Biden's candidacy after he just had a very poor performance. He shocked the nation with the condition he was in. Former President Trump and his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, have repeatedly attacked Kamala Harris and Governor Walz for avoiding the press, as they have made themselves regularly available. They've done interviews and press conferences. They're attending rallies daily. Heritage Action, if you're familiar with the Heritage Foundation, one of their arms, their counterparts, is Heritage Action. And they're the arm of the Heritage Foundation that gets really involved in campaigns. They recently released a video detailing the many radical policy positions that Kamala Harris took in her failed 2019 presidential campaign. Remember, the campaign that she dropped out of before the first vote was ever cast. She failed miserably. Now she's vice president and potentially president. Then U.S. Senator Kamala Harris believed that we should decriminalize illegal immigration, that we should abolish ICE, eliminate private insurance, and one of her recent flip-flops just a few years ago as a U.S. Senator, she was clear about her banning of fracking. Here, listen to the audio put together by Heritage Action.
I am in favor of saying that we're not going to treat people who are undocumented and cross the border as criminals. We can't treat people like criminals when they're crossing the border.
Abolish ICE.
Yeah.
Is that a position that you agree with?
And we need to probably think about starting from scratch.
So for people out there who like their insurance, they don't get to keep it?
Let's eliminate all of that. Let's move on. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
When we invest in clean energy and electric vehicles and reduce population, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink clean water.
Nonpartisan GovTrack has rated you as the most liberal senator.
Right?
And this is all true. This is all her voice. This is the type of message that we have to keep repeating, calling her out. She's the most deceiving politician we've had on the national stage in history, more so even than Hillary Clinton. Now, the Trump campaign also this week put out a great video, too. I want to share that with you. Is Kamala Harris debating herself.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Everyday prices are too high. Food, rent, gas, back to school clothes. That is called Bidenomics. A loaf of bread costs 50% more today. Ground beef is up almost 50%. There's not much left at the end of the month. Bidenomics is working. The price of housing has gone up. It feels so hard to just be able to get ahead. And we are very proud of Bidenomics.
And she wants to be president. Hope you'll join the conversation today. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send your comments to the Firmin Ford text line. You can leave a quick voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, you know, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com. Some good news out of Israel yesterday. The Israeli hostage, Farhan al-Qadi, was brought back from Gaza alive. He's the first to be rescued from the Hamas's extensive network of tunnels under the territory, and he apparently was freed without a fight. The Times of Israel reports that Israeli special forces found the 52-year-old alone with no Hamas fighters or other hostages nearby. The New York Times, citing senior Israeli officials speaking on condition of anonymity, reports that al-Qadi was found by chance in a room 25 yards underground as special forces searched the tunnel of the network of tunnels for Hamas fighters. It's not clear why he had been apparently abandoned and left alone in the tunnels. According to the AP, al-Qadi told Israeli President Isaac Herzog, "Suddenly I heard someone speaking Hebrew outside the door," he said. "I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it." Of course, and elated, al-Qadi just so happy that he survived and is now back into friendly hands. He said, people are suffering every second. You must do everything to bring the people back home. I'm sure that over the next few days, he will be debriefed and hopefully will be able to offer intelligence of just what is happening in that particular area of the tunnels, and which could lead to the retrieval of other hostages as well. The AP reports that members of al-Qadi's Arab family gathered at the hospital. One of his brothers, this was kind of sweet, held al-Qadi's infant son. It was his 11th child who was born while he was in captivity. Wow, 11 children. That man was missed, I'm sure, with this family and having to take care of 11 kids. But good for him. God bless him and his family that he is safely back home. CNN reported that al-Qadi is the 8th hostage to be rescued alive by the Israeli military since the October 7th attack. It's hard to believe it's soon going to be a year, you know? I mean, just over a month. The other 7 were rescued from locations above ground. He's the first and only rescued within this and found in this series of tunnels. The former mayor of Rahat, Atta Abu al-Madahim, said that al-Qadi told him he had been held in almost total darkness since October the 7th and when he was captured. He said what he described was terrible captivity. His eyes were still struggling to adjust from seeing the light. That would have to be horrible, wouldn't it? To not know where you are. And look, when I was over in Israel back in late February, early March, in Tel Aviv, in Hostage Square, they have recreated what those tunnels look like so that people can see for themselves. And I was able to go down into one. Now, again, it was a recreation. It wasn't an actual tunnel. I obviously wasn't going to go into that far into Gaza. We got within a quarter mile of Gaza. We're able to see the first kibbutz that was attacked. We visited the area where the music festival and where all the kids were just dancing and listening to music, and they were attacked. But they've recreated this tunnel out in this public square so that you can see it. And I can't imagine being held for months and months like these poor people have in total darkness, not being given much food, not being able to sleep. I mean, it's just hard. It's just concrete and rock. No bathroom facilities. It's just horrible. And it's time that we are able to get these hostages home. So that's our prayer, is that this is just the beginning. Maybe he can offer information about the tunnels that can lead to other people's return to their families. COVID was alive and well, evidently, at the DNC in Chicago last week. NBC News is reporting that multiple delegates, reporters, and even Kamala Harris's campaign staffers have said they left the 4-day DNC with a positive coronavirus diagnosis. Chicago political consultant Jamie Sexton, himself a participant at the DNC, was quoted as saying, "You put 20,000 people in an 18,000-person building, it's bound to happen. You could ask anybody who was planning an event. They know somebody who has COVID." DNC attendees weren't required to wear masks, which they shouldn't have been, or supply negative test results prior to attending. And again, they shouldn't have been required to do that either. Salon notes that the canceled in-person 2020 convention made for a more raucous atmosphere this time around. People were glad to be there. And look, it was proven that a large people can get together at a convention like this, just like we did in Milwaukee a few weeks earlier. And yes, people got COVID. I'm sure people got the flu. Some people probably caught a cold. That's part of living, isn't it? One person wrote on X, "Indeed, I arrived at the DNC healthy and hopeful and left very sick and disillusioned. When you spend 5 days in Chicago for the DNC and come home with COVID-19, womp womp," Christopher Higgins, a reporter for the Advocate, the gay magazine, said. And rather than Beyonce, maybe the DNC surprise was the COVID we got along the way, News Nation reporter Kelly Meyer posted on X as well. I still can't believe they fell for the whole rumor that Beyonce was going to be there. Speaking of COVID, during the height of the pandemic, we have now learned, according to Mark Zuckerberg, that his company, Meta, scrubbed tens of millions of items on Facebook and Instagram that it said pushed misinformation on COVID-19 vaccinations and other things to deal with to do with COVID, with warnings placed on nearly 200 million more pieces of content. Why did they do this? Company CEO says that the Biden administration exerted pressure on them to stifle such content, and that it was wrong to do so, he says, and he wouldn't do it again. He's asking for forgiveness. Do you forgive him? Wow. Zuckerberg wrote in a letter to the House Judiciary Committee this week to Representative Jim Jordan. In 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. He said, I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. You think? You think that you have a major publication like this? And yes, Facebook is a publication because so many people are involved with their daily post on Facebook. That's how a lot of people get their news. So when you have an agency of the federal government and the very top of the federal government, the White House, telling a private company what they can post, what they can't post, and pressuring that private company to tell you and me what we can post and what we can't post, there needs to be a more thorough investigation. And not of Facebook, but of the Biden administration and just exactly what they were intending to do. We can't let this pass. There's so many things that the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration, I need to make that clear, the Biden-Harris administration, so many things that they did that we can't let them get by with it. And I hope that Representative Jim Jordan, I hope that he holds their feet to the fire. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Just click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, find me on YouTube. Be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on my YouTube channel. Just search for Joey Hudson. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. Be sure and forward this edition of Just the Truth to some friends. Just click on the share button. Send it to a few of your contacts, because if we're going to build our community and if we're going to win in November, we got to build an army of conservatives. The way we beat Joe Biden is through educating people, and no better way than encouraging them to listen to Just the Truth. Hey, keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Your emails always welcome as well. Joey@joeyhudson.com. Don't forget to take advantage of the MyPillow special, $25 for the My Towels 6-piece towel set when you use promo code Joey. Just go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. We're back again tomorrow. Hope you will be too. Remember, God's got this. He's still in control.